Hello. 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 Hello? Hey guys. Let me see here. There, that's good enough. Hey guys, welcome to the show, to whatever this is. Welcome. Let's see if this is good enough. You can hear me okay? Can everyone hear me okay? That's good. That's good. All right. So, for those that just arrived not long ago, I'll do the usual thing for the first minute or two. Give you updates on myself. Some of you like that kind of thing. Maybe a little voyeurism into the tragedy of my existence. Kidding. So, let's see here. Been taking the 200 milligrams of Qelbree now. So for the ADHD, seems to have a nice little impact on my energy levels. Though, just like when I took the original 100 milligrams, the nausea is back. So it's probably gonna take a while to adjust. But I do like the energy. The energy's nice. The idea is that it's supposed to make it so that when I accomplish tasks and do things, it'll help my inattentive ADHD ass actually get more like some of that fucking dopamine kicks in when I actually like accomplish something or finish something. So it'll increase the volition of stuff, hopefully. So it'll kind of help with some of the old Zoid issues, chemical issues, as well as the inattentive ADHD stuff. So Qelbree. Hey Emily Lovell, how's it going? So that's what's happening with that. Everything else is pretty much the same. So yeah, I'm dealing with a bit of nausea right now. Probably side effects, I'm guessing. Gym's going good. Went today. Was nice. Increasing lifting and all that. Seeing number go up. It doesn't excite me that much, but it does. It is cool that like I'm feeling stronger. So I like that part. So yep. Couple days a week is the goal. Hopefully 3. I'd like to go to the gym at least 3 times. But now I have a couple of smaller weights. Well, not super small, but I have some next to me. So even while I'm working, I usually work a remote job. I'm doing like the occasional reps to wake up because I get sleepy when I'm bored. But the medication's helping with that, and doing a couple of reps is actually waking me up a bit. So that part's kind of neat, I guess. You know, working shoulders a little bit I don't like the machines for the shoulders and the stuff they have for shoulders. And then the gym I go to, it's inexpensive, but like all the benches and usually are like taken up. So most of what's available is the machines, and the machines for shoulders they have there I do not like. So I'm just doing them old school at home recently, but doing the rest on machines and things. So, you want to know something though? Like that worries me. This might be stupid. This might be a stupid thing. I don't know. Maybe some of you guys might relate. Okay, so obviously the machines have like a specific amount of weight that they kind of like max out at, right? And certain machines, like I'm not maxing out or anything, like nowhere near. Depending on what part I'm stronger. But stuff like, you know, tricep, biceps, lower back, calves, some of the leg ones. It's like it's getting there, right? So my concern is like, okay, so once like the machines are like, say I keep doing it, obviously keep continuously doing, the machines are just not like, should I just keep doing that and just be happy with that? I'm wondering, like, because if I want more gains or whatever, I'm gonna have to go to like the sections where like there's more people kind of walking around doing stuff, you know, like, you know, next to them. It's like it feels like more of a social space, even though nobody's talking, and it kind of like makes me uncomfortable. So I'm like, uh-oh. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I really don't. I don't like, because like I've noticed that people will like just stand there and wait for you to finish with like whatever you're doing on that bench or that thing or those weights or that, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't really see a lot of that with the machines, but they do that a lot with the other sections. So I'm like, I don't want that. So I have to kind of either just deal with it or whatever. I'm like, why can't they just put heavier weights on the machines so that like you could just stay on them instead? But yeah, that's like one of the reasons I don't. Yeah, I wish I could just afford to have my own gym at home, not deal with any of that shit. In any case, okay, so now that there's a few of you here, I'll get started on what I plan to talk about. So today's Tuesday, so it's Topical Tragedy Tuesday. It usually means that like I talk about something that I've been thinking about. It's been bounced around my head a lot. And then anybody that wants to talk about it with me can, either in the DMs or whatever, the chat, or if they're on the Zoid Void server, they can join me in the annex and just converse with me on the matter, or debate me, bro, or whatever. I don't care. So the subject is as follows. So you saw the title. It says the use of having a neurodivergent opposite friend or whatever. And yeah, I've discovered great use in it. And I'm not talking about like the use of having a neurotypical friend. That could have its own use if they're like highly open-minded and highly metacognitive, because then you can like learn a lot about certain social things to navigate. But I meant more like if you're like on the schizo side of things, to have like an autist friend that you could actually like be easier if they're like an autist zoid, easier, less problems there. But having somebody on that kind of other side of where you're generally at, I'm on the more abstract side of things, right? So my thinking is just intuitively abstract, and then I have to kind of like work from that and then like adjust as required, needed. And my bud, he's autistic as fuck, but his thinking is intuitively that way, very concrete. But they also like to dabble in like categories that aren't generally like would be considered more abstract, and then kind of sort of systematize and take them apart and figure out how they function and work, whether it's something like philosophy or whatever, right? But they have their own kind of more aspy sort of takes on what would be more abstract subjects, right? And I'll have more abstract perspectives on what would be more concrete subjects, right? And it's pretty cool. It's actually not just beneficial for the purposes of intellectual or stimulating or whatever fuck you want to call it conversation. It is definitely fun for that. It's really fun for like theory crafting, because or like world building and shit like that, because then like you can like they're like intuitively fitting certain types of pieces and you're doing the others, and then like you'll find ways to like adjoin that information. It's pretty awesome. And my bud being neurodivergent themselves, like we both have that like kind of high metacognition of wanting to understand what the other person is saying, because we both know that there's like information in trying to figure out what the other person is saying. And since we are both working in good faith when we have these sort of discussions, even when we're like debating on something, we can get like to some pretty cool solutions and figure out certain things and so on and so forth. And the other day, I was having a little moment, right? I guess it would be more of a schizo moment, right? Unfortunately, like I put the video that caused it on the server because I found it interesting, but it was kind of fucking with me, and I wanted to hear other people's thoughts, and it seemed to have fucked with someone else in a similar way, I'm guessing. And so then it prompted me to think like, okay, like why don't I talk about a way that I managed it, like when my some of my schizoid thinking got overwhelming and got more salient and felt more real, and so it became like really uncomfortable, or it was just fucking with me in ways that my generally stoic ass did not like. One of that thing, it was a video. It's done the rounds. It's probably got somebody made an edit, right? I already watched the original. I looked it up, but somebody made an edit of that streamer, a pretty famous dude, Destiny, and it said like Destiny Schizo arc or some shit like that. And it was, for those that haven't seen it, I'll just briefly describe. It was just basically a video that I guess it was from a stream that Destiny did out of kind of nowhere, from what I understand, like at midnight or late his time, and it was like talking about certain concerns and like things he's like anxious and freaked out about. He was basically talking about how he's had this weird feeling with like the bots and things like that, in either the chat or in other types of communications that he get. Like it feels like the bots or these AI bots or whatever, like almost like I don't know, like he was feeling paranoid about them, right? For some reason. And he's not generally the most paranoid individual. And then he started talking about like a particular fictional doctor, essentially, that had videos on. He has a YouTube channel. It was like, look up I don't remember, it's Anakian or some shit. And if you go to the channel, he's got like videos, and he says he's like I think he says he's like a theoretical physicist, or I forgot. And he has like these takes on world stuff and whatever, and it looks like a real video, but like upon closer inspection, it's like very likely just AI generated video, right? And so then he's like, okay, and then he went to the guy's website, and the website has like really sussy pictures that look AI generated, like there's like books in the background, some photos that don't have titles, and like all kinds of weird shit. He has like 2 mics in the video, and he's talking instead of one, but he's like, he's rationalizing like, oh, it must be a backup mic, right? And like And of course, it's an edit, right? If you find this edit, the schizo edit, it makes it spookier, it makes it like scarier, with the music. And they did a really incredible job. Like whoever edited that, it said Kino edit, and they were right. They weren't fucking shit's Kino, and but it just added to the effect. And I'm a horror movie guy, so I'm not really like, I like shit like that. I like scary shit. I like scary music. I like stuff like that. I love that stuff. And I'm watching it, and like it's like freaking me out because all these ideas start flowing through my mind about like I already have like trouble with certain things, and I'm like, oh shit, like am I not going to be able to like differentiate? Like how soon is this happening? I'm not prepared for this to happen so quickly. Like the inability to differentiate between like human beings I interact with on the internet and not. And then I start like thinking like, oh shit, like what if over time like I got like people joining the server and then I'm not sure, and then like so I started getting a little weird and paranoid about it. The part that like got me more paranoid and freaked out was the fact that, and it might be what I'm thinking is because he's such a big streamer. I'm thinking, well, this is I'll explain. Nah, I'm not gonna tell you. I'm not thinking that. I got told that. It made sense. But anyway, so there's a part in the video in which like he was live streaming, and then somebody said, "Oh, is somebody talking about that Dr. Enochian or Nokian guy and how he's fake? He's not fake. Here's a paper he did or some shit, right?" And it got posted in his chat while he was talking about like what looked like seemingly some kind of weird AI YouTube channel with this doctor. And then like if you the account that posted saying, "Oh, this is real, check it out, here's a real paper that the guy was a part of," and he posted the link, and then Destiny's like, "Wait, that account was just made, like this is a new person that joined out of nowhere while I'm talking about this." And then he clicks on the link, and the link goes to like what looks like a .gov paper, like the website, and it's a PDF, and he's going through it, and the PDF, like it like at first glance it looks like, oh, this looks like a research paper with an abstract or whatever. It's like some kind of case or something. It was a case. There you go. It was a case. It was like a legal case regarding it or something that would, and he's going through it. It's like there's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo in there. And there's like weird, like words misspelled, all kinds of weird shit in it. Right. And it's clear, like this is a false AI generated like case. Destiny's like, this isn't even the right font for this shit. Like, what the fuck? Right. And so that was freaking him out. And then that got me thinking about like the possibility of like having interacted or having future interactions like that with people like that are following me on like X/Twitter, or putting messages or leaving comments on the YouTube channel or something, and I'm like engaging or thinking about what they're saying like it's a person putting it there. And I started getting like a little paranoid, right? Because then I started thinking about like the implications of that, and how that could tamper with aspects of my ability to perceive certain things and make decisions. And so that fucked with my sense of autonomy and all kinds of shit, right? And like, yeah, it was like legitimately freaking me out, because then I was just like going into weird headspaces about like just simulation shit and other stuff, and other weird existential worries and just schizo shit. And so I reached out to my bud. I reached out to my buddy Era, and I said, "Hey man, like, I think I need some autism here to calm me down. Because like I need you to like do your thing where you break things down, and that way you can give me more context as to certain possibilities. And I know you're not gonna just make shit up to like help me feel better. You're just gonna do your thing. You're not gonna just give me some like weird cope or something. And so then they were like, okay. And then I showed them the video, and it was kind of relieving that by the end of that video, instead of feeling like I did about it, or I mean, because even at the end of the video, Destiny, like, he looked really nervous, and he said something. I mean, he might be getting gaslit. He might be getting like AI gangsta or something. But he's a big target, right? And that's my autist bud said. He's like, by the end of it, he's like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that shit spooked me the fuck out, like, big time. And he's like, okay, well, I thought it was gonna be like a lot worse. And I'm like, okay, that's relieving to hear already, right? Like, okay, explain. And then he's like, well, yeah, because did you forget how high profile this guy is? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, yeah, you're right. And then he's like, oh, well, yeah, obviously he's just being targeted with he's just being targeted by some fucking person that doesn't like him. He's already like a controversial figure, so somebody is just fucking with him using chatbots and AI. And for all we know, like, they made the website and the YouTube channel that's been up for a long time, so I don't know. That's the weird part too. And they're just using it to fucking gaslight Destiny and fuck with him because they don't like him. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah. So this shit is just fake, and it's freaking him out. It's freaking you out because you're doing your schizo thing and thinking about all these implications and existential implications about like your autonomy and your sense of self and who are you talking to, is anything real, blah 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 type shit. And the way he was explaining it, like bit by bit, in a very kind of sort of concrete way, it was relieving. Because I was having trouble getting in the headspace to like be more reasonable and kind of like, okay, and it also reminded me sort of like the way like, I guess what like some people would call yeah, could be targeting his audience as well. Yeah, exactly, Duck, exactly. So like those closest to him that work with him in his like audience, or people that help him, and like they could be fucking with them, and that's freaking them out, and so then that gets, and he trusts them, and so then like, yeah, so he was explaining that to me, and I'm like, okay, yes, that makes sense, yes. And it was like relieving, because I've had situations where like somebody's more on the other side of things, right, more autistic, and they'll get paranoid, they'll get freaked out about like the minutia of certain things, right? And then like I've been able to like calm somebody down like that by just sort of expanding and bringing in more abstract context and ideas, and kind of expanding it out so that like the entire world isn't that like fucking thing, that small thing, but bringing in more abstract so that it expands it out, and there's more room for like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This isn't like this current feeling of like, this is make or break. This is the make or break thing. This is so important right now. Like that salience of that, like that very, very specific detail, that minutia of information, whether it's an action they took, or a concern about an action that was taken against them, or a concern about like something kind of more OCD concern about like, and then that spiraling kind of thinking. Yeah, like I can calm someone out of that pretty well. I've done it before, because I'm like, okay, well, taking this, take this. So what about this? And there's a possibility in these routes and these. Let's make it and break it. I don't know what that means. And so, yeah, I've like, in my mind, it just started making me think like, oh, holy shit, like it is really good to have. Like, because if I just surrounded myself with, like, nothing but, like, schizoids or schizobuds, right? They would probably just get freaked out and paranoid about something like what I described with me. Meanwhile, he was just like, not a big deal. Look, I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been helpful if it was just somebody going like, oh, you're just being paranoid. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, what are you worried about? Oh, who cares? It doesn't affect you. Like, those kinds of answers would not fucking, like, social, like, and like validating social sort of style of like trying to calm someone down and whatever. Like, that shit would not work at all. It just wouldn't be coming from a place that I can fuck with. You know, it feels good faith to me, or whatever. People, I know that phrase is overused, but and then we even discussed like, oh, you're just like, this shit's just really salient to you right now, like, because you heard this and you already had these concerns, and then plus I do that kind of work, right? That's like my day job. I do like AI shit for a company, and so then like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a mixture of all that sort of stuff. And then what's interesting too is that like, when I think this happens to both like autists and schizo peeps like me, will like forget about other types of contexts, like have we been eating well? Have we had enough sunlight? How have we been sleeping enough hours? Are there other factors that are causing an increase in anxiety, depression, and things like that aren't being considered right now, because you're like over here or way over here, right? And so it's pretty cool to be able to like hear that kind of communication. Hold on, my little one's going to bed. Give me a second.
Pulling a lot of stuff.
Sorry. Little one goes to bed. You guys are probably used to that now. Always around this time, usually hour 8. Yeah, my time. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of bring that up, talk about it, and, you know, basically discuss the sort of usefulness of it. A sort of usefulness, and this is what's funny, as well, or tragic? I don't know. I feel like most neurotypical people have a really tough time understanding the value of having people in your life that have very, very much differing cognitive perceptions and frameworks about like everything, the fucking reality anyways, and what matters, and value systems and ethical systems and shit like that. And I feel like schizoids and a lot of neurodivergent people probably have a lot less they have a lot less barriers when it comes to like the ability to sort of accept that there's like types of thinking that differs greatly from theirs without casting an immediate social judgment on them. And so there's a sort of empathy there too, like a double empathy, as it's described within autism literature, a double empathy that kind of can actually go across that ocean of cognition between an autist and more of a schizo person. They're both kind of, they have probably a stronger willingness to understand each other's puzzles, right? And even if they can't solve them, they can respect the value that they bring to the table. And I feel like a lot of, like I said, a lot of neurotypical people have a really tough time doing that, because they never really had to learn to have to do that. It's not really a parameter for trying to like manage their life or exist, and like it is for a neurodivergent person. They have to develop these things, otherwise they're kind of just more or less fucked. Anyway, oh, we got Saintist and Mr. Fall, Mr. Shadow Fall here. Let me, oh wait, I'm not even deafened. You guys can talk away. Are you saying anything? Or is anyone saying anything? Oh. Wait, what? You're all quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah. No, I just didn't have anything to say.
Oh, okay, cool. But like, yeah, like I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I think me, I don't know that we thought about it like that way when it was like occurring, but I feel like me and you have kind of done some of that before too, Shadow, where like we reach across the aisle, to kind of like help figure out shit that's not like necessarily in our immediate wheelhouse.
I mean, maybe, but I have experienced that a lot more with the other folk on this Schizoid Void.
Oh
There's
yeah,
been a lot of discussions I've had with people across the aisle where it's really kind of opened me up to understand how to articulate to them in a way that they understand.
Yeah. And
I just had a conversation recently about someone that they elaborated on how my explanation and perspective of a thing opened them up to reaching across the aisle in my direction.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of there's information on the other side that's like can actually be reassuring and helpful, and actually like beneficial to your own mental health, which is pretty awesome, I would say.
I mean, I haven't had too much of that yet.
I feel
it's
like
mostly just intrigue and ability to communicate more effectively.
Yeah. Like there's been like once or twice where I think you've hit me up over like to get my perspective on something because like you couldn't quite like, especially something that had to do with communication.
I mean, I do that for practically anybody within my grasp, so you're not special.
I don't want to be special. I'm just trying to bring up an anecdote.
I know, but I'm not saying you're particularly special in your perspective. It's just that you were within my reach at the time.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But you get my point. It's useful to reach across to whomever may be available. But I think it would be even better to have people in your life that you could consistently do that with. Why the fuck is this music like this? I don't. This song sounds like I'm about to fuck my audience. What the hell is that? Alright, hold on. Sorry, it just sounded like a girl, I'm gonna lay you down by the fire type fucking music. Yeah, I didn't.
I mean, I was under the impression that you were gonna do an OnlyFans soon. I was just.
You think it was gonna come this soon? Yeah, I know. Yeah, you weren't prepared yet, huh? You told me to put you on.
Yeah, I didn't think you were much of a quick.
The wish list on the. Right,
no, I didn't.
No, I didn't. Yeah, you did, dude.
What? Okay, a little bit of a tangent. Why do these people always fucking put words on my mouth that I've never said, never insinuated, never even mentioned, but all of a sudden you just...
It's a joke. It's
but
ha-ha.
Okay, you
obviously
might have been joking,
you did not ask me to like put you on the wish list if I were to ever create an OnlyFans. Nobody believes that. That's
okay,
absurd.
But my point is that but my point isn't that you think I would have meant that legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
My point is you might have been mistaken in that I said that as a joke even. Because that could have been the case, and that's what I thought you were.
Well, I was just playing off the fact that you had assumed I was, and then I turned it into a thing where like you were looking forward to it to make it funny. Because you said you were assuming I would, and then I'm like, well, yeah, of course you would assume. You've been telling me you've been looking forward to it as the joke. That's the joke.
So it was just an innocent misunderstanding all the way down, huh?
Well, it was a misunderstanding about the way I was presenting my joke. Yes.
Yeah, they're not funny anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Somebody probably laughed out of the 17 people here. Somebody probably got a giggle out of that. I got a little giggle out of that.
No, if you laugh, then you're not real. Stop
Oh,
existing
that's it.
immediately. Like, I
Hell
snap
yeah.
my fingers and you get Vamos.
Yeah, sick.
Vamos.
Should laugh more
Thanos,
often.
yeah.
Vamos, Thanos, Vamos, Thanos, Thanos.
Yeah.
I don't know. I lost
Just turn to dust.
What's going on, Mr. Stark? Anyway,
I mean, I don't have too many like across the aisles when it comes to schizo stuff. People that are schizo perspective in helping me. I've had like within the last year some neurotypical friends that have given me a different kind of perspective outside of myself. That's not necessarily autistic, but it's more of
like social,
like getting
stuff?
out of my own head kind of deal.
Okay, like
Kind of.
interpersonal or like
It's not, it's
like
not the
everyday
same thing as
life,
what you're describing.
life stuff.
Oh, like reframing how people perceive me and how people perceive in general.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
getting direct
Kind of similar, but
feedback
not the
from
same.
the source instead of like your
Yeah,
perception
actual
of what the
feedback of
feedback
people.
is. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And also not of people that are just inherently bad faith and will say anything just because they're like either
Well, yeah, you're lucky. You have
malicious or
you have some
otherwise willfully ignorant.
you have neurotypical buds that are like that in your life. This shit's pretty badass. Gotta say, not many of us have.
I mean,
that
there
luxury.
is. No, I'm aware, right? And for a long time, there is a tipping point wherein, like, a lot of my schizoid symptoms were completely like blossomed because of similar neurotypical friends of a certain incident.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kind of mended over time as a couple of those people left the group, and the other ones like still stuck around, and my reframing of that event has changed.
In a positive way.
The bridges have, it's not that the bridges were mended, it's that new ones were created, I think.
Okay, I can vibe with that for sure.
So situations have changed.
Like I remember in like, okay, so just to kind of get back on like the whole weird concerns, and I remember like there was an event, like was it the other day, I guess, like they tried to like assassinate Trump again or something, right? Like, but it wasn't like the same, but it was pretty much it was gonna, they were gonna try to do it.
It failed a lot more horribly than the first time.
Well, yeah, because the security had to shoot up like crazy after the first time. But point being is,
do you see anything about the guy's other appearances and stuff?
Oh, yeah, I saw. I looked into the guy
isn't,
himself. Yeah,
nobody.
interesting fellow. But
Yeah.
But well, hold on, before I lose my thought on this. Normally, hearing something like that would have like started making me like, paranoid about like the direction society's heading, and how, I'm gonna feel like there's nothing I can do but watch type feelings, and I'll start like, sort of connecting those negative dots in my head again, and sort of that sort of stuff before. Like, I think that would have definitely been a reaction in my like late 20s even, and I've improved it significantly. But it's cool to have these kind of different sources of thought, to be able to like be like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen, or that's gonna happen, or this is, those sort of angles and shit like that. And then it's just to be able to sort of not let it spiral in those sorts of directions. I wonder, like,
just recently, I made the comment in the server that even here's the direct quote: "I don't believe in conspiratorial ideas for the pure point that I think there's just a convergence of happenstances with many different groups." I think that applies to a lot of things. So even I don't fall down those rabbit holes because I'm just so inclined to isolate all the variables that are happening at one point and just see them as independent from each other.
Yeah.
Since I don't have that like togetherness that schizo perspectives have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. And so hearing that play by play, piece by piece part slows down my sort of more loose associative referential type thinking um, from spiraling, and kind of working on that skill, and also having people that communicate that way, and reading the the thoughts from people, not just lurking and seeing some of their own thoughts and the way they break those down can be like incredibly useful, especially pertaining to some of that kind of stuff that seems like, oh, here comes the dystopia, oh, here comes, the end of the world, oh, here comes some fucking unstoppable behemoth known as like human folly is coming down on me. Um, but anyway, it could also be the med changes that made me extra sensitive. There's also that distinct possibility. Something, again, I'm probably not taking into like proper context when I was feeling what I was feeling.
I mean, I'm trying to think because I similarly have, uh, like, I'll have anxiety flares or even like going bordering on like fear attacks
Mm-hmm.
about like in the opposite direction of like entirely like disconnect isolation kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have like someone explaining to me how that's not the case, even from a schizo perspective, I don't think would kind of alleviate that. And it's more so just I have to like stop what I'm doing and like either take a
Yeah.
break and then come back and like put my head down and work on something.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I would have the same experience as you as I tried if I had someone across the aisle.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, it might not be something that works for everybody. I just know that I've seen it work for a few, and it did work for me. So it's just one of those situations. Of course, Shadow always the odd man out in every situation. Fucking classic Shadow.
I'm the most unique person people know.
The most unique person ever. Um, to your own detriment.
Did I take that as an insult now?
Yeah, we should.
I've heard that from too many people.
Oh, they tell you that you're super unique. You're the most unique person they've ever met. I would not hear that
Not as a
shit.
compliment, just like as an observation.
You're so unique.
They don't do it to say like
It's weird.
they say that as like they're intrigued by you're the most unique person I know.
Weird novelty or something.
But it like it's like the most insulting thing I hear.
That's funny.
I'm not insulted by them. I'm just insulted by the happenstance, the circumstances.
Yeah. Because you know that didn't mean there was no actual insult in play that they were attempting to create. In fact, they might have been attempting to compliment you and failed miserably.
Just feeds on the thing of everything's too isolated perspective.
Mm-hmm. Everything feels too atomized.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and recently I've been just going down like different kinds of like schizoid rabbit holes, and then like applying my more broad perspective about stuff that would have like bothered me a lot more in my 20s, and then like I've been able to like see in this far more sobering fashion. Like, okay, here's one that I found like just absolutely fascinating, right? I was watching there's I don't know if you listen to that YouTube channel, is the midnight broadcast club or whatever, where it's just a bunch of like /X like 4chan shit, like, and he has like the AI voices like reading the 4chan shit, and like some of the conversations that go on in there on X or whatever, and some of them are just,
I mean, I've seen similar, but
yeah,
not the one you're
some of them
talking
are
to.
just so funny to me because I could see like, oh man, how people get there. Like, for example, there was one on there about Conan the Barbarian of all things, and about how the author of Conan the Barbarian or the conspiracy was that Conan the Barbarian is real. And
Your mic keeps cutting out.
oh,
I don't
can
know
you
if
hear
it's in
me?
the stream
Hello?
too,
Can
but
you
it's
hear
on
me?
Discord at least.
Hello? Am I good?
Yeah, yes, it just cuts out sometimes.
That's weird. It shouldn't. Um no, but the idea that Conan the Barbarian is real. Right? Happy Landfall, hello. And so you know, they start like, you know, putting the text, the green text, well, not the green text, but the 4chan discussions on like how's Conan the Barbarian real, right? And it has to do with people that believe in like the idea of Hyperborea and like pre no cutting on YouTube, that's good, Doug. Pre historical.
You still do it. Is
But
he
that's
cutting on
Discord.
stream? Okay,
No, he says not
I'll
on
deal
stream.
with it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pre like written history or available written history. Yeah, Crom. Um, like civilizations and shit like that. You know, Atlantis, all that kind of shit. And then you had people.
I loved Atlantis.
Oh yeah, but you had people going like making arguments like that were really interesting. They weren't just like, okay, so you had one guy saying the author of Conan the Barbarian had like made statements that and other people have, you know, there's anecdotes of him telling other people that like the reason he wrote the Conan the Barbarian books, he was like a, what's interesting, he was a what do you call it when someone's your peer? I guess one of his peers, one of his was H.P. Lovecraft too, which is interesting. They were like around the same time, and he was talking about how he had the presence of this like barbarian king from like pre-available written history had basically threatened him on some fucking cosmic level to write these books because this is the true history of humanity prior to this or that. Trolls feeding the trolls sounds like it, sort of, because it was interesting because like, you know, they would post the links, they would be like this, they were like, you know, they seemed really interested, and there's already people that are really into the whole you know, oh, the conspiracy that they basically erased like past civilizations and all this sort of stuff, right? And so they were bringing in all this kind of Hyperborea type talk and conversations, and like how we only have a certain like, you know, 15 16, like these civilizations existed like 50-16,000 years ago, and because they kept like every time somebody else would take over, they would destroy or erase the past of the other. It was like a very common thing, actually. Even if you're talking about,
I mean, it's not like that's a novel idea.
no, it's
That,
not,
you
because
know,
it's
there's
actually
been the burning of the Alexander Library.
well, that one's weird because that one's debated because
Alexandria.
they think that was an accident. Some people think it's a purpose. Whatever. That's a whole different conversation. But the point
Well,
is
still, I'm saying knowledge. The fact that knowledge
destroying
like of that caliber can be lost isn't
yeah,
such
yeah,
a,
it's not,
you know,
it's
outlandish
not,
idea.
but like intentional action of that kind has been going around. That's actually been proven and it's been going around since like, we're talking like Sumerian, Babylonian civilizations. They used to do that shit all the time. Like it would be like, oh, we wage war with this other group, and then this other, you know, civilization, you know, what is it, would be like Bronze Age civilization or something, and then we would we'll go to destroy all their gods and take apart their monuments and erase all their, you know, the stuff that they have about their civilization, and kill all their people and destroy any like record.
It wouldn't be hard for technology of that age.
No, because they didn't even have like proper books or anything, right? It would just be like tablets and shit. And so
That's
then
what I mean, right?
they would just fucking smash all that shit and then replace it with their shit, right? And so like, you know, that's part of the reason you have like, yeah, you have these revisions, and usually it was like motivated by a lot of like, you know, obviously cynical power things, but also like religious perspectives of like, my god is stronger than your gods, and my gods crush your gods, and so we have to erase everything that has to do with your weaker gods, and your, you know, whatever, they're unfit to exist, and yada yada. And so
It's like children playing with each other.
yeah, no, of course. And so this kind of shit would occur, it wasn't uncommon. And so there's people out there that argue that there's obviously like a printing press, recorded type history, oral traditions that essentially got destroyed, and PS4 versus Xbox fanboys, yeah. And so then there's people that argue that like some of those civilizations were actually far more advanced than we give them like credit for, and then of course then you get into like weird territories like ancient alien-y kind of bullshit, and it's all fascinating. It's like really cool, fun stuff. I love that kind of shit. But I don't like. I used to find that shit more salient when I was like 21, like because I had trouble like. I was like looking for answers. I was grasping at whatever I could about like esoteric knowledge, because I was just so desperate to figure out like why is the world as like fucked as it is, and why does it hurt so much
I was like that when I was 11. Like 11, 12, and 13, I was looking into like Babylonian shit and like ancient Christian scripture and stuff.
Well, I mean,
but then I kind of fell out of it.
But was it because of like? But was it like occult fucking? You thought there was some secret knowledge that was available, or was it more just an interest in past human civilizations or something?
It felt like there was, in like a normal kind of perspective I've had over my life, it's like I thought that there was information being withheld from me, and that this was just an aspect of that theme.
Oh, okay.
Like there is history that I'm like purposely being withheld information from, as I'm purposely being withheld information from everybody about everything else.
Yeah, it was coming from that like same place of like trying to find answers, because
from a neurodivergent aspect, yes.
The answers weren't available, so you're digging everywhere you can to find some kind of answer. But anyway, yeah, so they were linking it to Conan, they were linking it to this, and then you had people talking like arguing back and forth about like, oh, but no, the water levels and this and that, and like the flood that they say that that's written in the Old Testament, and then Atlantis and all this sort of shit, like, and like there was people arguing like about like land masses, temperature changes, like they start getting into like the stem of the subject, some of them, right, while other ones were like more like on the other side, and they were gonna having this like conversation that they're either, like somebody said here, they're just LARPing, or there's just like a handful of fucking people that find the shit that salient that it affects them. And the reason I go, oh, well, it's not an impossible thing that there is a subset of people that are legitimately not just trolling, right? And it made me think about like the recent Trump shooter guy, or the attempted assassin guy, because if you dig into like him, you start seeing a lot of this like he was definitely on the schizo boat. And I
was thinking that, but then there was a lot of like there was still like he had this kind of like togetherness perspective, but it was still like there was a lot of traces of social stuff.
Well, maybe because like, but he was doing stuff like he legitimately went to like Ukraine and tried to join their military, and they said he was too old, and so then he stayed over there and he was trying to like fund like getting like Americans and shit, and like other people probably in his like circles that he runs to like were younger to go fight for Ukraine. And then like he was doing stuff like he was putting his actual phone number on Twitter and like commenting like public political figures, like huge figures that get like 20,000 comments, and he was like, I can help you with this, call me, here's my phone number. And he was putting like his actual phone number on there.
I'm not saying he's neurotypical, but I'm just saying
no, but he
like,
and then
he's not entirely,
dude, he was super meta, because like he started, even if his positions were absolutely fucking incorrect, he's pro nuclear war. He wants nuclear war. Because his idea is, well, we got other, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they eventually got past it, even if it took a long time, and a lot of people will die, but we'll figure it out, and this and that. Like, he was thinking, like, over the course of, like, a couple hundred years, and how, like, America, because he was very nationalistic in this very unhinged way, believing that, like, America will thrive and survive, and then a destroyed nuclear world would be, like, the perfect opportunity for, like, American democracy to somehow, and he's this is what's so interesting too, is, like, people started saying, like, oh, he's a Republican because he registered Republican, but then his perspectives are, like, fucking absolutely not Republican, but they're also not demo at all, like, in many ways. He was like it was the weirdest thing, because I one of my favorite guys were talking about it, and they were just like, it sounds like he's unironically, like, a radical globalist or something. Like, he wanted, like, that whole, like, the whole, like, what normally would be, like, yeah, over-identification savior complex, for sure. They had some of that shit. It's kind of fucking America Jerusalem complex type shit going on. And yeah, like, they were just like, they believe, like, let's start launching the nukes, we gotta stop the evil that is Russia, and, like, and he had all this shit in his head, dude. And, like, the reason he was going after Trump was because Trump was too easy on Russia, and because he thought, because he sees Russia as a threat to democracy, and he believed all the information about him being a Russian asset, he saw Trump as a threat to democracy, and so that's why he was doing what he did, because Trump was easy on Russia, not because of all the other stuff everyone talks about, but because he perceived Trump being in league with Russia. That was, like, his primary concern.
Someone else mentioned that perspective too.
Yeah, and it was like he was connecting dots where dots should not be connected. Like, and there was, like, nobody in his life really stopping him, or if they did try, they didn't work. Yeah, it's a fucking mess. And people were like, how did he get an AK-47? Like, and so but then you got the people, that's what's so funny, somebody said Fed confirmed, like, now you have people going, like, oh, he was a, like, MK Ultra project, Fed, and so now, like, so it's just interesting that, like, what could be a schizospec type person that was really mentally unsound and didn't have the support, and shit, is now being used as, like, is being implemented as a tool for other sort of people like him to confirm their own kind of larger conspiracies and stuff. And it's just like, yeah. Like, it took me, that conclusion you said about, like, being able to, like, be like, oh, I can see that it's just a bunch of different parts, like cogs working independently, and it just looks like they're working in conjunction, but they're just independent cogs. That's something that I can very much do now, that I could not do very well in my 20s, like, at all.
I mean, I still get freaked out by coincidences because I'm still confined to the nature of biology and the fact that humans are pattern-seeking creatures.
Yeah.
But I normally am more quick on the gun with individualized cogs.
One rule I have: crazy people don't plan well ahead. That's not true. That's not true at all. There's some crazy people that plan very much well ahead. It just depends on what the goal is.
You only hear that because all the crazy people that don't plan ahead well are the ones that get caught.
Yeah.
Televised.
Yeah, the ones that planned ahead very well are the ones that no one heard about, no one knows about. So
Survivorship bias.
I don't know, man. I'm sure there's plenty of them that have done it. Um, Connect the dot psychosis. That's going to be a fascinating story. Yeah, and you know what's funny is that when I hear connect the dot psychosis, I picture a schizospectrum person that is dealing with like overwhelming stress and parameters that basically could induce a type of psychosis. Because like I know for sure, I've seen an autist or two that with enough stress, enough crazy shit, and overabundance of very just not good things in their lives and surrounding them, and anxiety and other issues, and probably not eating as well as they should or not drinking enough water. Yeah, they could definitely go into a nice kind of OCD style psychosis as well. Yeah, it's not unique. I don't consider psychosis to be something unique to any particular category. I think it's just kind of something that occurs in humans, and some people have a higher predilection for it than others. And you know,
it doesn't help that it's only exacerbated by isolation. You know, the thing that happens to neurodivergent people more so.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I mean, I'd assume that's
even
why
with the
more
bias,
psychosis.
with the prevalency of neurodivergency being so much lower than neurotypicality, it's still more prevalent in my opinion. That's how severe the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, isolation plus no support system plus confused sense of identity plus seeming threats, existential threats in your life and things around you, plus a world that doesn't make sense. Yeah, like in many ways, like how the fuck is that not gonna, with enough of those variables, how the fuck is that not gonna get a sensitive person to like start hitting those
like
levels?
It's not even like a percentage basis higher. It's, I think there is the fact that we associate psychosis with like schizospectrum is is evidence that literally on a per number basis, despite schizospectrum being a vast minority, still have more not what's the term, not like percentage, but just raw numbers.
I don't know that. Like that's actually something that's kind of been interesting to me, because the only reason I don't know that, I'm not sure about that, is because okay, so if you talk to people that are still in isolation affair, yeah, if you talk to people that are schizophrenic, right, like diagnosed schizophrenic, they're not always the woo-woo spiritual cosmic conspiracy, the type of shit that like is memeably schizo, like, or schizophrenic.
Yeah, they're not well, I mean, schizophrenia and schizoperspective are two different things that you're mentioning here.
Well, the psychosis portion is right, but my point is that if you talk to schizophrenic folks, they seem to really vary. They're usually neurodivergent, not always, and they really much vary on the way their psychosis and the concerns they have and the delusions they may possess manifest based on their already kind of intuitive way of thinking, right? So like I've read some cases of like, schizophrenics that are paranoid of like everyone within their interpersonal range, right? It's not about like some big thing. And if they're being like, they believe in something like that, they're being gang stalked or something, it's usually like, my family that is the ones, doing this to me. My ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, my former friends or coworkers, you know what I mean? And so then the paranoia is coming from like this weird interpersonal space, and the psychosis is as well. And I think that the only reason it seems like schizospec people are like more likely to be schizophrenic might be because that's like what falls into the trope. And the memetics of it is, oh, schizo means like you believe in aliens and shit like that, and they're gonna get you, and you think the government is like spying through your, you know, I don't know, on your toilet or some shit. Like, you know, you think there's like, you know, fucking microphones and shit. Like that's all people picture usually. They picture like that person, or thinks that they're, you know, the devil is talking to them or something. And yeah, man, like it's just I don't know if it's an effect that media has had on people's perspective of, oh, you know, the raw numbers of schizophrenics have like these type of thoughts. It's like maybe that's what people just talk about because it's like the most like out there and most sensational shit, you know. Like nobody's really that interested in a schizophrenic that has psychosis related to, I don't know, the food they eat and the contents of that food, and the various like you know, types of diseases, certain types of food can increase your possibility of receiving, or conditions that can make you sick, or, you know, like almost like a psychosis related to like hypochondria, right? In their body, and like sensory shit, right? Like that's fucking legit. Like that shit happens. Like, and it's not that uncommon for like psychosis to manifest in that kind of fashion. So that's how you end up with the person that's like, I need to fix the problem. I need to fix the problem. I need to, the thing, oh, like it's all very local, very like about their body and their brain and their body and them, specifically them. It's not being like extended outward. Yeah, I feel like a lot of agoraphobia lends itself to that kind of shit too. It'll be like germs, people are infected. There's so much that could hurt me. There's so much that could physically destroy me in the world. And then you start having all these delusions. And then maybe your hallucinations, if you suffer from them, like are coming out in those ways. Like maybe you start hallucinating that like people like have like signs of disease or something. Or like you start seeing shit like oh, that person, they look at them, they're like kind of greenish, their eyes look off, they must have some virus, they must have something. Like remember that one guy, it kind of reminds me of like the guy that was on the server for a bit, and then the Hive guy. Remember the Hive guy? We've talked about it a bunch of times. The Hive guy,
yeah,
kept saying they were like diagnosed autistic when they were younger, and they're autistic, and that the reason the people in his life and would go after him is because he was autistic and they were part of this hive, right? And the way they you could see that they was like the gestures of their hands and like the physical nature of their bodies and the gestures they were doing. It was all about like paying attention to like fingers and finger position and assigning like some kind of like encryption to what it was that they were doing, and why it was they were specifically targeting him, and why society at large is targeting people like this. And you could see in their hands like they're signaling to each other like bees, right? Like unknowingly somehow, like, and so he was like, he had this whole system in place.
It was like they were focusing on a physical form of communication.
Yeah, like hand gesturing and stuff like that. Like it was like some kind of secret fucking what's the word, sign language or something. And that would be the only way to like keep it like from him knowing what they're doing and why they're hurting him. He was trying to like make sense of why he was in so much pain, probably, and how, well, God knows the type of pain he endured, because he was, what he said, he was like 60s. He said he was in his 60s, and I mean,
He was like 55, 65-ish.
60 something is what I was told by him. I think in a DM, and he had said it in like things, and I just started thinking, I'm like, oh wow. So imagine being what it was like for him to be autistic in his 20s, in his teenage years. That must have been like a fucking nightmare. Like they were probably, you know, who knows? Maybe they were hitting him, smacking him. Maybe they were like belittling him.
The issue I had was upon conversing with the guy for 5 minutes, less than even, it was very apparent to me that like I could have a conversation with him in good faith, and I understand where he's coming from and why he's saying the things he's saying. But I could easily imagine so many people just calling him a crackpot and not understanding the reasons behind what he's saying and where like his perspectives are coming from, why he would think this, why he's saying this. And it's not the things that he's saying, but it's why he's saying them. It's kind of like a point you and I bring up all the time. It's not about what you're doing, it's about why you're doing it.
I was actually a little bit disappointed in some of the behavior I saw exhibited on the server regarding him. Only because like I was like, you know, some people were kind of seeing him as just kind of a lol cow, and something funny, funny, and like, I mean, I could see why it would be so weird and shocking, and the way, you know, how outlandish the stuff he was saying, and other people were getting really triggered by the fact that he was like saying stuff that could be potentially, you know, anti-Semitic, or, you know, because he's connecting other thoughts and like about physicality and gestures and like what they mean and symbol.
Again, the fact that you say that just hits me from completely out of left field, because that I don't even remember that happening. I don't know.
No. I saw. Yeah, there was like little internal kind of jokes and memes about Hive. Oh, are you one of the Hive? Are you Hive? And I'm just like,
fucking some of these comments, man, just completely hit like these perspectives. Like every so often, you know what I'm talking about. They completely hit me from left field. Maybe that's just because I'm so focused on the thing that I don't make the connections.
Oh,
but
no,
like,
no.
How the fuck do you even think this? How would you even jump to this conclusion? Kind of left field.
Yeah. And so there was people kind of making jokes or comments or like following what he was saying because out of like morbid curiosity. And it was more like, oh, this is so fucking weird. Look at this strange, pathetic novelty or something. That, you know, has a type of thinking that's just like, like, what the fuck is this? And like when I mean,
to be fair, to make fun of the situation isn't to make fun of the guy. I'm sure.
There's
these differences.
Yeah, no,
right?
Definitely. But I mean, I thought there was a
from
little
their
bit
perspective,
of both.
it's still,
You
know,
that's
fair enough.
Yeah, but like, you know, when I saw him and I got told, hey, like my mods told me like, hey, what's this guy doing? Like, what's this stuff he's posting? Like, he's like spamming all these weird pictures and like all this stuff, and I'm looking through it and I'm reading them, and then he put a link to his server. I joined it. I looked at some of the stuff in there, and like, I was just like, I was watching a tragedy unfold, man. Like that shit was fucking tragic. Like I was just watching that shit and I'm like, oh damn, this is so fucked. This is like some grim dark shit. Like whatever happened to this guy, that like this is what he's doing with his life right now. It's some grim dark shit, man. Guy's like fleeing in terror and constantly paranoid of like neurotypical people and their hand gestures and how they are after autists like himself. Oh no, for sure. I mean, and then like, yeah, and then when he said he was 60, that's immediately my thought was like, oh man, that guy had an awful fucking life. If he was you know, diagnosed autistic in his teenage years or some shit, what would be like the fucking, it would be like his age at the time, it would have been like in the shit, it would have been like in the late 70s or early 80s, depending on when he fucking got that shit. And it's like, man, and there was still a lot. And what if he came from a, you know, family? Because based on the pictures, what was weird is based on the pictures he was saying that he was in, he's like, this is me and this is my family. Based on those pictures were from at least the fucking 70s or something, and they look like it to me because it looked like, you know, Polaroid old school camera type shit, and he was like, it looked like a pretty, like, either upper middle class or upper class family. So God, like, you know, maybe he was that kid, you know, that they fucking keep under the stairs, you know, that kind of shit. You know, like, it's like, oh, we have status, we have this, we have that. It's like, and we're ashamed of this fucking kid that's a freak, that's a weirdo, that's screams because noises and fucking shit like that. Like,
you know, for the people that don't immediately understand the difference between why you're saying something versus what you're saying, I think there's a lot of people that fall under that category out of pure ignorance, that there is a distinction that, like, genuinely matters because they just don't understand the perspective.
Yeah.
And this has kind of been brewing in my mind, but the types of people I get along with and I'm friends with in real life are, like, two of them are not autistic, but one is extremely logical and just, like, more rational thinking. And despite being socially oriented, they're still very, like, I guess, quote unquote, autistic friendly.
Yeah, it's kind of that whole.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's part of, like, it's that subset of individual that even if they are neurotypical, they're easy to work with for someone like you because they have that, you know, what is it, that big five fucking MBTI fucking, you know, they have those traits that make them that sort of way, even if they are socially oriented.
Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
They're just
I get it.
they're very logical. They like systems. They like their machines. There's a lot of, like, autistic overlap despite the whys being very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is kind of like the very important thing I'm keeps repeating. And another is just generally a very friendly person and just, like, genuinely compassionate, and more of an example of what I wish other Christians were like, because he is religious. And then one is autistic. Another one has borderline personality disorder. Two of them that I met just within the last year come from a traumatic childhood where they're twins, so they were able to help each other out and find people eventually. But they're all very socially oriented. But there is a degree of separation from the neurotypical herd in them. Because the one friend that's logic oriented still wouldn't go to the same groups that I wouldn't care for. Same as the other one that's more compassionate. And the borderline is, but they still have that kind of trauma to understand things. And that's kind of like the point I'm trying to make. Not so much someone having different forms of thought, but the people I get along with most are that have the capacity to understand different perspectives are people that are traumatized.
Yeah.
And have trauma.
Absolutely. Because
and it's
to go through that,
I don't know, but it's
cognition.
like people, but it's like,
not always, but often.
It's, maybe I'm focusing on the trauma too much, but there is a clear distinction that separates them from the normal herd that even they are aware of. And I don't know.
They know.
Why
I'm guessing it's because they're like I said. I think having a fuller grasp of the type of suffering someone can endure and the type of damage another human being can inflict upon others, and knowing that increases your ability to cognitively empathize with things and people around you. Far more. I think that's something that does come, sadly, it comes from, it's one of those things that can develop as a skill. Trauma, if you're someone that endured, like, different kinds of trauma and shit, it's sort of like, you become more not considerate, cognizant of suffering and in the various forms.
Like, the way I would explain this, it's like if you're never ousted from like normal society, and if you're like if you remain in that group and there's never enough of a problem to make you feel isolated from it, it's like you're ignorant of everything beyond those borders, for better and worse. It's like the metaphor I used to describe it was like being kicked out of the Garden of Eden only to realize the world is so much vaster than that simple little garden. For in both good ways and negative ways.
Yep.
It's like being kicked out of the Garden of Eden and going to a city like Chicago. Like there's the skyscrapers, right? And then there's the slums. But there's like a more of a high and more of a low. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why, but like it genuinely changes like your psyche. Like it genuinely opens up the things that opens up to your perspectives, change who you are as a person. But if you remain in that group, you're like denied that, for better and for worse, genuinely, that perspective change.
Yeah.
Like it affects your intelligence, it affects it affects everything.
It was effective in their mind.
And I don't know why that kind of like I don't know why those like constraints even exist. Like I don't know why being separated from the herd even opens you up to a world beyond that like small community. I don't know why you can't have that perspective while still remaining in the community. I don't get it.
Because usually, I mean, my view is that being forced to be outside of conditions that are familiar, especially if those conditions are unavoidable, it forces the metacognitive skill to develop. I mean, I really think it's that simple, personally. And so,
but it's like as severe as a child that goes through puberty kind of perspective change. Like it genuinely changes your psyche.
Yeah, of course. Neuroplasticity, homie. Trauma changes
and
your
psyche.
Psyche.
We're not having people. Well, it's not specifically just trauma, but it's being separated from a community at least once.
No, yeah. But
a lot of people don't leave their hometown, let alone their country.
Okay, yeah, no, but it doesn't even have to be about geographic location. Watch, let me explain. So,
well, that's like the most easiest and obvious way I can articulate.
Sure,
this.
Of course. Like that's why you have situations where like an American goes to live in another country, and then there were like whole perspective shifts about life and what it means and all this shit, and they get all gurued out sometimes. But my point is that, okay, say you live in a town, right, and you live with like the smaller percentage of like highly abusive parents or family members, right? You're literally living an entirely different type of life than your peers to a significant degree, right? And knowing that maybe you hide this, maybe you have tried to share it, but you're met with like punishment or non-belief of your situation, or being told you're exaggerating, or whatever it is, because those people just don't want to accept that such a condition can occur because of their own fears of such a thing. But point is, the living that kind of alienated existence, it makes you realize how unique individual lives, perspectives, and suffering can be, because you're already living it, right? And so then, for example, if somebody my god, okay, if somebody was a victim of like SA, right, they're not gonna like say they had that kind of shit in their family, right? It was just specifically SA, like dad or mom or brother or whatever, some fuck sicko. they're gonna grow up with that trauma, and then when they hear about the story of the person who had a physically abusive family, right? Another one that had a psychologically abusive family, not necessarily, sexual in nature or anything. They're gonna still have a stronger capacity to like cognitively empathize with the people enduring a different form of suffering. That's what I'm trying to say. That is something that just develops from having experienced, like, being in another world in which the humans around you do not understand it. And it would be to a lesser degree if you went to, like, if I went to go live in fucking, I don't know, like a completely different country. It's gonna have, like, I'm gonna see types of joy and suffering, right? That's gonna be very foreign, very strange, or alien to me. Maybe that's gonna expand those abilities for sure. But so does that. So does trauma.
Well, like, it's the point
fucked,
that
but yeah.
I think I'm trying to make here is it astounds me just how severe that shift is, because it's like a giant mass of people are being denied a second point of maturity that's as equal to something like puberty or becoming an adult.
Yeah, well, that's because of the society.
You leave the confines of like your local community and school, and you become an adult, and there's a lot of perspective shifts you have on life because you're thrown out of the nest, right?
Yeah.
But it's like such, like, I don't want to sound like mightier than thou, or not mightier, holier than thou, or like above people.
But you already stated
in many
that
aspects,
like being around these neurotypical people already expanded your ass. So you were literally,
that's what I mean, right?
No, but you were literally already doing
there's a lot
the
of
thing that you're so mind blown that people can't just do. You were already participating in that, like, for years.
It's not that they can't just do it; it's that they unintentionally don't do it because they never have.
Yeah.
They never have a thing that separates them from the community that they're in.
Yeah.
There's never a canon event.
Yeah, and that's what my point. Certain types of trauma separates you from the community that you're in.
But there's so many people in which it doesn't just expand my mind for understanding people, it expands my mind, period.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where the more you learn, the better you are at learning.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like what you're trying to like sort of explain isn't like, it's something I've been pretty aware of for like a really long time. And like it doesn't feel complex to me, or like a mystery or confusing. Like, that's not how I experience it.
So
it's actually pretty intuitive.
But it feels really isolating when I'm talking to someone who's never had that just demolition of ego, I guess.
Yeah.
Is another perspective way to say it.
I don't know about demolition.
When I can't. Well, I mean, it's an aspect of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not in particular, but when it's really isolating when I'm talking to somebody that's never had the opportunity to have their perspectives challenged in a way.
That's why you present those opportunities,
like, explodes their mind.
Possible. Or
it feels as though
that you hope that opportunities that aren't traumatic will present themselves. Trust me, I prefer if people didn't learn this. I prefer people didn't learn the skill because of trauma, and because of necessity.
And they don't have to. There's
conditions.
Like
no,
I said,
they don't.
There are two examples of my friends that didn't.
It's
they
just
just
a brute
were separated
force
from the crowd because of natural things.
It's kind of like trauma is like the version of that's kind of imposed upon you due to your conditions.
Yeah.
But
it's really isolating when I'm talking to someone who hasn't had. It's like if I'm talking to someone without this perspective shift, it's as if I'm talking to a child. Not in every aspect, but in enough aspects to where they don't feel like I'm not in the same world as them. In a manner of, I feel like I've progressed further from them. Does that make sense? I don't mean that in every aspect, because there's still obviously so many different myriads
A
of.
point is that do you learn it because of unfortunate conditions or just because of their, I don't know, that's the brain kind of functions in that way. They need to help their fellow man develop that skill as well. I think ultimately that's just beneficial all around.
In any case, the like the separation, like the gap of separation is so blatantly obvious that it's like we might as well be on different worlds.
Yeah.
Regardless of how I feel that direction is, or if there's even a direction at all, it's apparent that there is a difference that's so massive it's so hard to ignore.
Yeah, and I find it debilitating thinking about it too long, because it's I'm very emotionally attached to that notion, that tragedy. That tragedy fucks with my brain like a lot. I want to end the stream, but Saren had brought up a good point that I want to mention. They said, but I think sometimes insight does not go hand in hand with trauma. No, absolutely. Definitely not saying. I'm just saying that in many, it helps it develop this kind of insight into pain. But yes, there are very much a lot of people that the adaptations go in the opposite route. They end up wanting to inflict.
Trauma's like throwing
pain.
You out from the nest, right? It's not exactly a good or bad experience in and of itself. It's just a new one.
Yeah, and so there's people that develop adaptations that are more about like, I'm being hurt, so I will hurt others so that I feel less hurt. Yeah, there's plenty. That's kind of the direction. I hope most human beings, I don't think most human beings go in that direction, that endure trauma. I think the majority do have an increased sense of compassion and understanding, but because of that, it expanded metacognition. But yeah, it doesn't always end up that way, that's for fucking sure. Yeah, you got into one of my more like schizoid subjects right there when you were talking about that like sort of feeling of but yeah, I can't stay in that thought pattern too long, because that's one of the ones that like feels really salient for me.
It feels isolating, but as I literally just mentioned, I have friends that aren't of
but
type, but I've found out.
Yeah, but see, that aren't isolating at all. That helps you, right? Having that. Because that's where you're at. Like it's about your local framework and what's available to your mind.
And the only reason why I mentioned that was because, in my opinion, when I hear physical evidence of something happening, and it's at least reassuring.
No, that's what I mean. I don't find reassurance physical evidence. That's why it's hard for me to like contemplate those thoughts too much, because evidence of people exhibiting that to me specifically is not as reassuring as it should be, because I know that there are plenty that do not have that opportunity, and that eats me up from the inside, and I can't let it. So all right, so thanks a lot, guys. If you like the stream, if you like what I talk about, remember Tuesdays is just whatever topics in my head. Saturdays, I'll have a question up for Schizoid Saturday, where I put a question up for the Schizoids on the server, and they can answer it, and then I read the submissions anonymously. I don't say their names or usernames or whatever, and then I kind of just engage with that, and it probably gets other gears going and that kind of shit. And on Thursday, if I do stream, it just varies, but now that weather is not fucking with my mind anymore, because I get like a seasonal affective disorder when it comes to summer and heat, but it's getting colder and I get more volition. And so on Thursdays, usually it's kind of just a buckshot blast. It's just kind of I like to show up just kind of.
It's a back shot blast.
Yeah, it's a back shot blast. I like to show up and just be like, hey, you guys bring the subjects to me. Like, what do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys want to vent about? What are you dealing with? What random shit do you want to talk about? I don't care. It's empty head or head empty Thursdays. So 7 p.m. generally. Sometimes I'm late. Come and join. And if you want to support me, Patreon is like your best bet. Donate there, or PayPal. That kind of stuff helps. Aliens, yes, indeed. Aliens. I'm glad you enjoyed. Happy. As long as it's useful. Peace out, guys. And as usual, when day is dark, always remember, happy day.